Welcome to the Know Yourself Revolution. My name is Grace Gravestock, and I'm so excited today to introduce you to Sarah Beaton. Today, we're going to talk about tuning to your soul's unique harmony. And Sarah herself has a finely tuned throat chakra attuned to the frequencies of the universe. And she does have a very rare gift, which you'll see in her human design, for deciphering and adjusting the energetic vibrations within each person. She teaches people how to recognize and embrace their innate sound, helping them remain in perfect harmony with themselves and the universe. Her goal is to empower people to navigate life with confidence and authenticity without needing validation or harmony from external sources. And she uses astrology and sound healing, and she is a life coach. So please help me welcome Sarah Beaton.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be here.
I'm so excited to share your work with the world, Sarah. And I know that you have a fascinating story that I can't wait to help you share. So before we jump into your story, to set the stage in more ways than one, we are going to look at your human design. And so if you're new to the show, I want you to know that we always start with a human design reading of our guest. And the reason for this is because I want you to see who Sarah is and that she is living her purpose. She is leading by example, and she is perfectly configured to be and do exactly what she is being and doing in this work. And Sarah, you're so unique. I have to say there's a ton here that I want to go into, but I'm going to focus on a couple things that are really unique about you, particularly unique. When you and I talked the first time, I just felt so immediately compelled to invite you onto the show. And then when I'm looking at your chart, I'm seeing why. I felt it energetically, and now I'm seeing why. And so the first thing that jumps out at me is that you are what we call a problem solver, talented, and it means that your role in the world is to solve problems, and when you're not solving problems, to be a hermit and be your talented self, having alone time in your cave. Does that resonate?
Yes, definitely.
And you and I are super rare. 2.4% of the population are both this particular configuration, what's called a 5-2, and I am the opposite, I am the complementary aspect of this, which is the 2-5, which is why you and I immediately clicked, and it's very rare. I meet a lot of people, so it's very rare to find another person that is both a 2-5 or a 5-2, because 2.4% is not very much. My partner, incidentally, is also a 5-2, and it was just an immediate click with him too. So that is to say that if you are listening to the show for the first time and you're like, oh, I wonder if I could use this to find a partner, there are a lot of things that we can talk about that can be really useful for that, or friends or people that are particularly compatible with you. But I wouldn't say that's a first thing, although it might happen, because you don't want to be limited to that, right? There's a lot of other aspects of yourself. So I don't mean to get off on a tangent. So that's very unique. So first of all, you're very unique in that way, Sarah. Second of all, you're very unique in this way, which is what we call a completely open throat. So what's really interesting about your chart, Sarah, is that when we look at these 9 energy centers, what we're looking at initially is how much color there are. And so wherever there's color, that means that's what you're here to master in this lifetime. And whatever is open is what you're receiving. These are all the receiving dishes. And so it's one of the reasons why you're able to attune so precisely, because you're picking up so much information. You're like a giant receiving dish on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 of your centers are giant receiving dishes. So you're literally picking up a ton of information. Now, that way of describing you, having that much openness, is often associated with other types. You are very unique, again, in this way that you're what we call a builder. So you have the generator motor, this orange square at the bottom, which means that it's what makes you a builder. It means you have access to unlimited energy when you're doing things you find satisfying. So I'm highlighting this because I know that when you tell your story, you're going to talk about some of the things that you found particularly satisfying in your life and in your work, and then things that were frustrating. And so the main point there is when 70% of us have these key signs, and so we're meant to do the work that's satisfying to us. It doesn't necessarily mean we get paid for it. When I say work, I just mean do the things, whatever it is. And so you're going to be in your story, we're going to be listening for the times when you felt satisfaction versus frustration, because when you feel frustration is when you know that you're off track. You're just not on your path anymore. So I'm sure you'll share with us. I know a little bit of your story, so I know that you're going to highlight some of those things.
Mhm.
And let's see, the most important thing to highlight about you is this completely open throat. So what I want to say about this, and it's very rare, so I'm going to use notes here so I don't get it wrong. It's so rare. There's only one other speaker that I've interviewed that has this, and interestingly, it's Cheryl Stelz. And so interestingly, her specialty is also throat chakra related. And she actually has her premise is that when there's throat chakra work, there's also usually root chakra work to be done. There's a connection between the root and the throat. But my point is, it's very unusual to see somebody with this configuration. So completely open throat, meaning there's no color at all connecting to the throat. Now, why is that so rare? Because the throat center has 11 potential activations, and people with this particular configuration have no idea what to say or what action to take. For example, if kids with this configuration may take longer to talk and should be encouraged to speak at their own pace. And what usually happens is they tend to feel like they say the wrong thing at the wrong time, or they're ignored altogether. And so the resistance they meet builds over time. It affects their self-confidence and also their thyroid function. So once people with your configuration are comfortable with the flexibility and unpredictability of your speaking and confident in listening to your internal guidance system, which in your case is listening to your gut. And so we look at your social interaction strategy, which is respond before involving yourself. So that's waiting for something to respond to, not initiating. So once you are living as yourself and comfortable with listening to your internal guidance system, then the considerable wisdom potential of this center emerges. And so this is the wisdom. So everything that's open, all these centers that are open, are where you have centers for the potential for great wisdom. So because you have so much white, so many open centers, that means you're here to become very wise. And this particular one that's this completely open throat means that you have an immense amount of wisdom that you're here to share around sound and manifestation and communication. And so among other things, they will know who articulates well and who is speaking with authenticity from their own journey. And so I know from talking to you, that's exactly what you do with the work that you do with frequency. So I'm going to pause and just say, does that resonate with you so far?
Yes, 100%. Right down to I didn't speak much for a lot of years. Yes.
Wow. So you didn't speak much. So that was you building. I want to point this out. And so this is applicable to you if you are watching and your configuration is open, even if there's color attached to it. This configuration means that you're here to become wise about your throat chakra, wise about manifestation, wise about communication. It means that you're going to have a lot of variability in your experiences as it relates to communication and manifestation. And so that variety of experience, that variability is what brings wisdom. And so that sounds like that's what you had, Sarah. Is that right?
Yep, 100%.
Awesome. And I want to share something else with you. I'm going to just read your grand purpose. So this grand purpose right here in the middle of the chart is based on 4 energy patterns. In your case, it's 1, 2, 4, and 49. And if you're watching and you want to get your chart, you can get your free chart to find out what work you're here for at what'smychart.com. You'll get a lot of information about your particular configuration for free. And there is a little $7 upgrade that you can get. And I'm going to share what yours is, Sarah. This makes up 70% of what you're here to be and do. This is a summary of those 4 key codes, which are unlocked when you are living as yourself. So if you're interested in learning what that is for you, I'll put the link up on the screen in just a second. I want to share with you what you're here for, Sarah. At a high level, your grand purpose is to defy tradition and any kind of interference, conditioning, or influence It's in the way of your self-expression in order to be able to preserve and live your uniqueness and individuality. For that is your direction in life. Isn't that powerful?
It's so powerful. Wow, what confirmations.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, just a couple things. I can't help myself. I just have to tell you, one of the things that you're here, and we'll hear about this in your story, you're incredibly intuitive. And you've got, so what that means is you have the configuration here that, just like I said, all those receiving dishes can help you to read minds. You're technically an empath. You can pick up other people's emotions. All of this openness gives you incredible access to information because you're definitely picking it up and receiving it. And so I just think that's such a crucial part of the work that you are called to do. And I can't wait to hear your story. So before we jump in, is there anything else you want to say about your chart or living as yourself or any of the things that we've talked about so far?
No, I could repeat everything that you said because it's 100% bang on. Yeah, back to the sound thing for a moment. It's just unbelievable to me. Everybody always just said, "Oh, she's just so shy," but I never felt shy. I just didn't want to talk most of my life. And even right to when I got my first real big girl job and had to get on a conference call, I was just, when it got to my time, it was like, just get it out and over with because I don't want to talk and I don't want to talk to a whole bunch of people all at the same time. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. So that was you in the early phases of your life developing wisdom around communication, around speaking, around manifestation. And all of those, that variety of experience has led you to where you are now, which interestingly is a place where you're ready to come out of the closet, as it were, and share with the world your very unique gifts. So I'm so excited to let this be your debut, Sarah. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being and doing exactly what you're here to be and do. And with that, I just want to give you space to share your story. Today, we're going to be talking about your soul's unique harmony and how you are helping other people to tune into their soul's unique harmony. So that story starts with your own personal journey. And as on the podcast, we often start off with a story of what was one of the biggest challenges that you overcame that led you to realize that this was your, like, how did you come to do this purpose work, basically?
I think the biggest thing that I had to overcome was finding my voice. And it just, right from the get-go, I grew up in a very large family. I have there was six of us. And
Wow.
being the second oldest and the daughter, because the next one up was a boy, you just have a lot of things to deal with. And I just found myself just wanting to leave all of that craziness behind. And by the time I turned 18, I met a man who was going to college to get a real job and have a career out in the world. And that felt just so good to me because I felt this is my answer to actually finding myself again, looking on the outside for something. And away I went. And all the time I was sick my whole life with headaches. I had migraines almost 3 times a week for sure, but headaches every single day continually. And I just spent a lot of my life I got married early while he was still in university. We had our first baby and then he finished university and we headed out west to try and strike it rich and still living in the shadows of somebody else, there to support the man and grow the empire. And after about 7 years of that, I just sick every day, headache every day, something missing on the inside. Was like, wow, this isn't my dream. I can't do this. And I left. And there was a lot of lessons come with breaking up a family and for no real reason other than you just didn't feel like you felt something missing. And at that point in time, I still thought the missing piece was a relationship. The missing piece was a career. I wasn't the one that went and got the career. I was the one that did the support role and always living the support role. And that went on so when we broke up, I went and got a real girl's job and working at a courier company. And that's where I had to start speaking a lot more. And even every single time I needed to speak like to people I didn't know or a larger group, it got very nerve wracking for me. But I started actually climbing the corporate ladder because I am the fixer that showed up. And it was like everybody came to me to fix things. And I always knew the answer. And like it shows up in my chart. I had no idea where these answers were coming from. I just knew, like somebody would ask me a legal question and I'd be like, blah, 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 no idea where it came from. Somebody would ask me how to fix the fax machine back then, and I was like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." And it would just come to me because I guess that's just how I roll.
If I could just interrupt you for just a second. Yeah, I want to show you something real quick. So you mentioned, how did that happen? So your configuration with these two upper centers, the two top ones that are open, mean that you have the capacity to be able to just get the information from beyond the physical realm. And so you are fully supported. As when I know this will come into your story, but I just want everybody who's watching to see this, that you are uniquely configured to be and do exactly what you're here to be and do. And so you see that you are a problem solver. That is your public role, meaning that is how you're designed to show up in the world, literally as a problem solver. You use the word fixer. It is, yeah, it's exactly the thing. And so you were being and doing what you were here to be and do, except you weren't using your voice. And that is also part of that wisdom that we talked about, getting to that place of being wise about when to communicate, how to communicate, and really using your voice. And I'm really curious, you mentioned the headaches. I have also struggled with headaches, and it's so funny as I'm hearing your story, I have a sense for what the answer of this is. But do you have a sense for what the headaches were, what the purpose of them in your life was, especially at that time?
At that time, I didn't have a clue.
Do you have a sense now of what they might have been about?
Yeah, I was not living who I truly authentically was.
Yes, yes, yeah, that's exactly it. I know it's the same reason I had that aches all those years, so I totally get it. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
I guess I needed to hear that. So thank you
yeah.
for sharing.
And the more self-work that I did, the less headaches I got, and now I rarely ever have a headache. I rarely ever have anything. The
Same.
normal upgradey stuff, but no
Yes.
physical stuff. I even had high blood pressure at 19, and I went through everything to try and figure it out in the normal doctor realm of things, and they couldn't find a thing wrong with me. Because
Isn't that
again, it's
interesting?
energetic. Mhm.
Yeah, it's all
100%.
energetic. Wow. Wow, thank you so much. So I know there was more to your story. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had to ask about the headaches because it's such a parallel with my story in so many ways. So you
Yes.
okay, so you left the marriage and then you decided to strike out on your own. You got into corporate. What happened then?
I climbed the corporate ladder, even though I really didn't love it. I did like communicating with people and I did fixing things. I thought that was awesome. But I climbed the corporate ladder and I finally got to the top of where I could be there. And I wanted to go for a sales position because that was the next step. And they were like, no, you don't qualify because you don't have any sort of education. Sorry, this is the best you can do here, which I was not okay with that answer whatsoever. So I quit and I signed up with a temporary agency. And that was one of the most amazing things because just the experience that you get from going to all of those different places and learning how to fix all kinds of things. So I gained a lot of stuff then. But meanwhile, I started to be like wanting to address what was going on with me. I knew something was going on with me because it didn't feel good every day. By 29 years old, I was like, I just drowning. Single mom, taking kids to daycare, doing all of the things. And so I thought, okay, you know what? I'm out of shape. I'm out of shape. I'll just go and get in shape and see how that works. So I did. And then I became a trainer on the side because that was fun for me. And I was helping people get in shape, but I still didn't feel good. My body felt better, but just the muscles and stuff, nothing else. And so then I was like, okay, there's more to it. And so then I started to look into nutrition and all of the courses that go with that. And I finally became a holistic nutritionist where I started to learn about energy things as well, like Reiki
Mm,
and all of the energy things that we go through, and at first I was like, what's this stuff all about? Energy? You can't see any of that. You can't explain any of that. You can't prove any of that." And so when I first got into it, I was like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this stuff. But the more I got into it, the more things started to just show up for me. And then after a little while, I was like still missing something. So I started to get a life coach because that to me was more spiritual and could help me more on the path outside of I've never been part of the traditional anything. I've never been interested in anything that the society is like in the medical world, in the corporate world, in the legal world, all of education, all of it. I was always like, it sounds awful. Like just the vibration of it all is awful. And so then I just started to get into all of these energy things. I started to go on all sorts of spiritual retreats and all and get channelings and oh, you name it, I did it. But it just kept coming back to the same message all the time. People would ask me, "Do you sing?" I'd be like, "No, you do not want to hear me sing." You know, do you do stuff with sound? And it was always, and I was like, "No." But I do have a sound thing, so much so, like when my kids were younger, they used to think I was a witch because they'd be doing something I could hear, and they'd be in a total different room, and I'd be like, "Quit, blah, blah, blah," whatever it was. And then she can't even see us. No, but I know what's going on. I just always knew what's going on. And I knew it was by the sound of everything. I have to know if I'm somewhere and there's a sound and I don't know what the sound is, I have to go and find the sound. Like it was just so prominent all the time. And so I started to pay attention to those messages because they were over and over and over. And finally, I landed in India on a retreat one time. And the message came through, "You are here to help heal people with your voice." And I start laughing. I was like, how's that going to work? Like, what? And I was asked to just connect with somebody and open my mouth and make a sound. And I was so intimidated. I was like, yeah, no, I really don't want to do that. But I got enough courage up and I did it. And the lady who I did it to, she was a channeler and she speaks like language and all kinds of stuff, very sensitive. And she opened up her hands like this. So we connected. I did a little invocation. I opened up my mouth for some sounds, and they're not always pretty. And she started vibrating from head to toe, and I stopped. I was just jarred by that, and I was like, "No, keep going." And I was like, "Okay." And so then a few more things. I just was like, whatever sound needs to come out, just it's coming out. And she was just floored by what had happened. She said that she could feel that she knew she was working on something in her mind, and she felt like once I had done that to her, it had completely cleared for her. And I was shocked. And that was my very first experience of opening up my mouth to do something intentionally.
Wow. I just want to point out how you are a perfect demonstration of so many people that I talk to every day who sense that they're very different in some way and they don't understand why, and they're afraid to let their freak flag fly, what some people would say, because it's different than everyone else. And yet,
Mhm.
what if that very difference, which obviously in your case was the clue for you of what your true soul calling is, to really tune into those frequencies? And yeah, doesn't look like anyone else because you're not like anyone else and you have
No.
superpowers not like anyone else. And I want to call that out because I know that there's somebody listening right now that has had that experience. In fact, I was just on the phone earlier today with a client who said almost the exact same words that you just said. And the image that I saw in my mind is like a superhero. You can't expect, if I always liked Wonder Woman, and you can't expect that if Wonder Woman walks in the door, she's going to be like everybody else. Like she's not, right? She's just not. She's way more powerful and she's got superpowers that regular people don't have. But is she worried that she doesn't look or sound like anybody else? No, she's comfortable with who she is. And so that's how
100%.
you are. And that's how, if
Mhm.
you're listening and you're different, I want you to consider the possibility that might be how you are. And so each of us have these unique abilities and gifts, and we don't always recognize them. And usually we see them as something that makes us weird or different that we don't accept about ourselves. And so I just
Yes.
want to say thank you, Sarah, for being the mirror that so many people today need to see and need to hear. I Gosh, I want to go back to your chart and show one other thing. So I mentioned the word mirror. So you'll see in your public role this 5 after problem solver. So if you are watching and you have a 5 after somewhere in your public role, one of these numbers is a 5. I want you to know that part of your role and part of your purpose, and this is true for you, Sarah, and that's why I'm mentioning it, is you're literally here to be a karmic mirror for others. And so that 5 line is literally a karmic mirror, and the purpose of it is to help people look in the mirror and see, and you're a healer in a different way than probably you even realize. Obviously, you know that you're a healer in terms of sound, but people who have a 5 in their public profile, they're here to be a healer, but not in the way that you think. Most people think, like when I first read it, I didn't believe it because I'm also a 5 line, but now I understand it. You're here to heal by being a mirror. And when people look into the magic mirror of you, what they see is something in themselves that needs to heal. And they have that opportunity at that point to either allow that part of them to heal or to push it away. And so the beginning of opening up our superpowers is literally in accepting who we are. And that's why I always say one of the biggest gifts that you can get when you do get a human design reading is permission to be yourself. And that is true for all of us because it helps you to see why and how you're uniquely configured to be and do exactly what you're here for. Again, Sarah, I just want to say thank you for leading by example by sharing your story, because I know a lot of people can relate to this and a lot of people feel different and unique. And I want to just highlight how special and different you are in your abilities. And I want to get to talking a little bit more about that too. I didn't mean to take a side tangent, but I just wanted to point out what a powerful healer you are on so many levels, and perhaps in ways that you may or may not have been aware.
Yeah, I have spent my life with people just around me, and they'll say, "I feel so calm around you." But then you also get the complete opposite. Somebody doesn't even know you, and they're just like, "I don't know what it is about her, but I don't want to be anywhere near her." And that's the tuning vibration of me. When people aren't ready to see that, I've come to understand, but I did take a long time in my life just thinking, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why don't people like me? Like, you haven't even had a conversation with me and you don't like me." And I had a lot of that. And of course, working through my own stuff and my own self-worth and not being who I really was, I always felt like something was wrong with me. I was broken somewhere. That's how I
And I,
felt.
and I and I want you to see that part of that, what you were experiencing in these situations, is you were literally being a mirror. And so a lot of times, I've had this experience too. When people don't like us, a lot of us think immediately that there's something wrong with us or that it's about us. But what I want you to see in that 5 line, why I'm pointing that out, is because what they're seeing is themselves, and they don't want to see themselves in the mirror. They don't like what they're seeing. And so it feels like when you are that mirror, it feels like they're rejecting you, but it's actually that they're rejecting themselves. And that's why
Right.
it's so important that when we lead by example, by being part of the Know Yourself revolution, we choose ourselves first. We
Mhm.
choose to know, love, and trust ourselves. And by doing that gives us a frequency that allows us to send it out and be a beacon for others. Again, I just want to acknowledge what you're doing, Sarah. I think it's very powerful. And please tell us more about the story that led you to this work.
So then I went home and I shared it with my daughters. I have 2 grown-up daughters. And I was like, "This is gonna sound so weird, but I'm gonna share it with you." And I was so nervous, and it probably took me about 5 tries to actually even open up my mouth and do it for them, and they were just both like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And then for 7 years, I continued to just peek in and show people, like, in safe places, but every single time it was undeniable, the reaction that people would have. So then I started out on a little journey, was, again, still looking for my self-worth, still looking to confirm that this is actually real and I haven't made this up. I spent a long time. I got some voice lessons. I was like trying to make it sound pretty and doing all these different things. And the truth was, it's not meant to sound pretty, but only just getting to that now, like just within the last year when you said thank you for showing up and do it and speaking out loud and doing this in public because it was not easy for me at all. I spent a lot of time going, I don't want my family to know how weird I am, as in my extent, like my brothers and sisters, and even people around my town and stuff. I live in a really tiny town, and I just was like, I spent my whole life feeling like I was weird, and like you said, and so I just wasn't willing to come out of the closet. But I could not keep it in any longer because the I have been learning just every day to stay in tune with myself now instead of just when I felt out of tune. And not just you go get a tuning and then you just go back to normal and do all of the things and get all out of tune and then I go back and get another tuning. Yeah, I did that for a little while, but now I know how to consistently tune myself every day so that I can be in the right space to feel all of my messages, all of my answers, my next best steps, and my knowings. It's not distorted when people speak to me. I can truly understand what they're saying instead of just really feeling the distortion going, that's not right.
Mm. Is there anything you can share that would be applicable to maybe most people about how any part of that process that you go through that most people could try out to maybe start stepping into that for themselves?
Yes. Every morning when you wake up, if you just hum just for 5 minutes, hum in any way that feels good for you, you are completely aligning yourself up and bringing all of your stuff back into its natural space. Because everybody was born with their natural harmonic blueprint, right? And everything just knocks it out of whack. Like you're a symphony. There's so many fine pieces to you. You think one thing, you say something else, you've distorted your energy. You're not being your authentic self, you're distorting your energy. Not speaking up for yourself, you're distorting your energy. You're
Mm.
doing the job that you really don't, you're not following your passion, you're distorting your energy. Everything distorts your energy. But anybody can do themselves some really big tuning if they simply just hum. 5 minutes a day will make wonders of a difference to their body.
Wow, thank you, Sarah. That's really beautiful. So it's very intriguing what you do, and obviously we can see that you have superpowers that most people don't have to be able to do this. And so you're very unique in your capacity and your capability, and in the amazing work that you do. And clearly, it's bringing a big benefit to the world. Can you talk about the kind of people that are a best match for working with you? What kind of how would they recognize themselves if they're listening right now?
They would definitely be thinking that they're missing something and they really just don't even know what it really is. People that know that they need to make a change in their life, people that they don't quite have enough confidence to actually leave a corporate world or leave what they're comfortable in to follow their passions and understand what that really looks like. I find that people that generally come to me are those that they know that they need to make a change and they just don't really know how to do it.
And so what does working with you look like? How would you get them from that place where, as you described, to the place where they would have the confidence to be able to, or the clarity or whatever it is? What does working with you look like?
First, we definitely do a tuning. So what that looks like, it's just a really amazing meditation where I take you on a sound journey specific to you, specific to your intentions. We'll have a little talk what all those intentions are, but the main goal is to completely align your natural blueprint, give you a reset, which opens you up, ready to be able for things to start falling away that are not you, and then that are you will start presenting themselves. And so there's the complete tune up. And then if you wanted to do some coaching around all of that, we talk about Specifically, I use astrology so that I know some basics about people. I use it in a very practical way. You see how people tick, how they learn, how to speak to them in their language. I always look at their nodes because it tells you what their soul is trying to say to them, the north node, and where it really wants to get them to. So I'll go over their nodes with them and say, do you understand that these are the tendencies that keep you stuck in this lifetime? And these are the attributes that your soul really wants you to develop. And that itself just starts to open people up. Same as the human design, because it gives
Mhm.
you those permission slips to be yourself. It's just not on the to the extent that human design does, but it gives you those, oh my God. And then once you start to really appreciate yourself, then you in turn appreciate others for exactly who they are too, right? And it's much easier to let those judgments go as soon as you kind of let them
Absolutely.
go from yourself. I teach people how to stay in tune and all these different practices that they can do in order to. There's some really intense ones. If you're going through really intense things, like sound is just everything sound. So sound is so powerful to calibrate any of it that's out of sync.
And I've heard that there's ways that you can heal from sound, literally, that there are sound waves. Gosh, there's so many conversations we could go to here about that, but it's powerful. And I think it's starting to be a thing that people talk about. And this is new because 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a conversation. So I just want to say you're here. I believe that you signed up to be here at this time, Sarah, and that your gifts are needed right now when people are open to hearing them, and that we are ready to take our healing to the next level. And so if you're interested in working with Sarah, she's got a free gift for you, kyr.life/Sarah B. Sarah, could you talk a little bit about what that free gift is?
Yes, I've done an actual sound journey to do some tuning on you. So it's just a 20-minute meditation to just sit and relax and go to anytime that you feel out of sync.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much. I am so grateful that you have this amazing gift. It's interesting, and as I'm reflecting as you're talking on why I felt so called to invite you on the show, I think of this something really weird that happened to me. I used to go to Sedona every year, and I would get what I call downloads, get very clear messages every year, and it was always the same message: you're here to do these four things. And the last time I went, there was a fifth thing that was added, and I was told, you haven't really made enough progress on the first four things yet, but you're going to eventually get this fifth thing, and the fifth thing has to do with your voice and frequency and healing with the sound of your voice. And I was like, what? And they, and I kind of got this message that you're not going to understand it until the time is right. So it's just funny when you and I first talked that time, and it was this seemingly random series of events that brought us into a phone
Yeah.
conversation. And as soon as you told me what you did, this story came into my mind, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the time. It's time for that. It's time for me to start accessing that. And then the other day, a good friend of mine who I actually found through this work, the Know Yourself Revolution, she's in South Africa, and she said to me, when I heard you talking, so I was going live every day for a while, and she said, and I would say this thing, if you're within the sound of my voice, and she said, whenever you would say that, I would just get all this, I would feel all this healing happening in my body. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what I was being told about. So it's very exciting to me, the work that you're doing, and I want to thank you for living your purpose. You're obviously perfectly configured to be and do exactly what you're here to be and do, just like everyone who's watching. So if this is new to you, if you're curious, if this is speaking to you, listen to your body. If you're getting chills as you're hearing Sarah speak, if you're getting an indication in your gut that says or yes, go ahead and check out this free gift. Go to kyr.life/Sarah B. Check out her work. You will be drawn to it if it's for you. And if it's not for you, it will become clear to you, and that's okay. And this is what I think of as the new paradigm ways of living, working, and being. We don't have to be pushing or pulling anyone to do anything. It's about frequency, it's about alignment. And that's why I always say that Know Yourself Revolution, we are positively impacting 5 billion people by 2025, not because I'm going to be out there in front of that many people, but through frequency, through alignment and collaboration with people like you, Sarah. That is how we're going to create a tipping point for humanity to magnify and to amplify the frequency of love, the frequency of freedom. It's time for all of us to stand in our power. That's what the Know Yourself Revolution is about. That's what I'm
Mhm.
about. And that's what you're about. So thank you so much for being here today, Sarah. I'm so grateful for you doing your work and for finally stepping into, I say finally, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's time. It is
Yeah.
time. And it's now finally the time for you, and you know it, to step into that work. And you will see that the right people will come to you, because they've been waiting for you to stand up.
Mhm.
And that's another thing I want to highlight. If you're listening today and you're wondering if it's your time, the fact that you're having that question, it means it is your time. So I want to invite you to get your free chart. Start with this and just start looking at what you're uniquely configured to be and do. You'll get a 2-page free report, what'smychart.com, and that can start you on this journey. You can also go to get Sarah's free gift, listen to the sound journey that she's created specifically for you. And if it is for you, you will know when you look at these things, if when you feel into them, if it's for you. And there are people that are just waiting to help you, waiting to help you take that next step into unlocking your superpowers, into stepping into your ultimate purpose work, which is where the joy and the freedom and the abundance lives. There's a reason why you haven't found it yet, because you haven't been able to trust or step into what it is that you're here to be and do. So if Sarah's work speaks to you, please download this free gift and check it out and take a step of faith. This might sound really curious to you. Maybe it's new, the whole idea of frequency and sound and how powerful it can be. But if you're listening and you're wondering about it, that's probably the sign that it is for you. So I'm going to pause and ask you, Sarah, is there anything that you would have, any last words that you would have for somebody who's maybe on the fence, who's maybe curious, maybe thinking this is a little bit out there for them, but somehow they're drawn to it? What advice would you have for them?
I would just ask them to see how it felt in their body, and their body will tell them right away whether or not that this is the way to go. And I would even tell them to just start humming and see how they start to feel, because you will start to feel better in whatever it is that you are feeling out of alignment with. And eventually, you'll fall in love with yourself, because that's what happened to me.
Ah, that's so beautiful. What a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. Thank you for the work you're doing. Together, we can positively impact 5 billion people by 2025 through frequency, collaboration, and alignment. If you are interested in this work, please check out Sarah's free gift, kyr.life/Sarah B. Until next time, thank you for knowing and loving and trusting yourself and leading by example.